The emergency klaxon screamed through the narrow hallways of the mining station horizon's edge. Red lights cast desperate shadows across Maya Jain's face as she ran to the command deck. Her boots hit metal grating hard, and each step made the frantic pulse in her chest echo. Commander, we have about 12 hours before the cosmic storm hits. Derek Walsh, the station's communications officer, yelled. His fingers danced across holographic display that flashed red warnings that made him feel uneasy. Commander, Sarah Otter stood still at the viewport, her jaw tight as she watched the storm coming. It was a swirling mass of radiation and electromagnetic fury that could strip a planet of its atmosphere. 23 mining stations and 15 colony ships were already quiet behind it. Gone. Evacuation pods can't make it past the outer rim, Maya said, her voice steady even though she was scared. She was a 32-year-old mechanic with grease permanently under her nails and a reputation for fixing things that couldn't be fixed. But she knew that physics didn't change its mind. Derek pulled up a scan on the main screen and said, "There's one option. Been there for 6 months. We haven't been doing it." The picture turned into something that made Maya's blood run cold. There was a ship 3 kilometers from their station. No, calling it a ship was like calling a mountain a rock. It was huge, at least 5 miles long, and its design was so strange that it was hard for human eyes to understand its shape. Ice crystals covered its surface like frozen tears, and its hull was darker than the space around it, as if it absorbed light. Sarah said, "The derelict." "Can't be serious." Tarek's voice grew more desperate as he continued. "Its power signature is faint, but there. If someone could get it running, even a little bit, its shields could keep us safe. It was made for deep space. It could get through what's coming." Maya could feel every eye on the command deck turn to her. Her stomach sank. "Do you want me to start that up?" She pointed to the horrible thing on the screen. "I work on life support system and ore processors, not whatever that alien nightmare is." "You brought the main reactor back from a critical meltdown with a plasma torch and spare parts," Sarah said, moving closer. Her eyes were begging. "You're the only person on this station who might have a chance." "There are 473 people here, Maya. Families, kids." Maya shut her eyes. She thought of Emma Rogers from Hipponomics. Always asked her about the stars, of the old Thomas King, who told stories about oceans on Earth that no longer exist, of every scared face she would see in the hallways if she said no. "Need supplies," she said in a low voice, And I'm taking Jack's. Sarah let out a sigh of relief. Whatever you need, Maya was standing next to Jack's Turner, a tall engineer with nervous hands and bright eyes. In the station's crumpled airlock 30 minutes later. He was only 26, but he had an almost supernatural ability to understand how systems work together. They had kept Horizon's Edge going through disasters that should have killed them all. Are you sure about this? Jax asked as he looked through his toolbox for the fifth time. His voice broke a little. Maya said, not even a little bit, as she pulled out and put her helmet on. We don't have any choice. The airlock hissed open, and they jumped into the empty space. They were immediately swallowed by the silence of the space, complete, total, and deep. As Maya turned on her thruster back, her breathing echoed in her helmet. As she moved toward the frozen giant, Horizon was behind her. Edge looked weak, like a small group of lights against the storm that was coming and now covered half the sky. Maya's sense of scale broke down as they got closer to the abandoned building. What looked like a small details on the surface of the station turned out to be huge trenches and towers. That was a viewport it could have taken in their whole mining station. The building made no sense. Angles seemed to change when she wasn't looking directly at them. Surfaces that didn't reflect anything, and symbols carved into the hull that hurt to look at. Maya, Jack's voice came through the calm, tight with fear. I'm reading changes in temperature. This thing is frozen solid, but there are some warm spots. It feels like something inside is making heat. Let's hope it's just a residual power, Maya said. But she didn't believe it. This didn't feel like it was left over. It seemed like waiting. They landed on what looked like an outside maintenance platform, and their magnetic boots made a loud sound when they hit the metal, which was so cold that it hurt even though their suits. The heads-up display on their Maya screen said that the outside temperature was minus 270 degrees Celsius. This temperature, nothing should work. Nothing that is human. Anyway, Jax ran his scanner over a closed door that was 30 feet high above them. I'm picking up an access machine. An access mechanism, but it has an energy signature that I've never seen before. It's like electromagnetic but not quiet. Something is wrong with my scanner. Can you get it open? It'll give it a shot. He took out a portable fusion cutter and carefully heated up what looked like a lock. The eyes turned into vapor, and then the portal opened without a sound or warning. 1 minute it was closed, and the next it opened wide like a mouth, showing a hallway that went into darkness so deep that it seemed to push against their helmet lights. That's not creepy at all, Jack said quietly. They went inside. There were shadows and frozen metal all over the inside. Their lights showed walls covered in those same painful symbols, as well as pipes the size of subway tunnels and machines that were completely foraged into them. A layer of frost covered everything, making it look like stars scattered around the sky. Maya looked at her wrist display and said, according to the schematics, direct sent. And I use that word loosely because these readings make no sense. The power core should be about 2 miles toward the ship's center. We need to find a main way in. They walked through hallways that looked like they were made for creatures much bigger than humans for what felt like ours. Sometimes the path split into branches that went nowhere logical, or rooms that were too big or too small to be real. For example, there were spaces that were bigger on the inside than the outside, or angles that made Maya's eyes water. Then Jack stopped all of a sudden. Do you hear that? Maya stopped moving and listened. At first, the only sound were her breathing and the hum of her suit's life support. But yes, under there, a noise almost like it was a rhythm. A heartbeat. Slow, way too slow. Every 30 seconds, there is one beat. She said, the ship can't be alive. But her voice didn't sound sure. Jack said, all I know is that sound is coming from the way we're going. And it's getting stronger. They kept going, and the sound sure. Temperature started to rise. It was still well below freezing, but it was getting warmer. 100 less, 50 less. Some systems were turning on because they were there, and Maya couldn't tell if that was a good thing or a bad thing. Finally, they came out into a room so big that their lights couldn't reach the walls of the other side. A sphere made of crystal, the size of a small building, hung in the middle, held up by nothing that could be seen. It glowed a faint blue and had waves of the frost falling off it. The sound of the heartbeat was so loud here that it came from the sphere itself. The power core, Maya said, but something was off. Maya saw shapes frozen in the ice around the core as they got closer. Figures, yes, they were aliens tall and angular with too many limbs, but they were clearly the ship's original crew. And they weren't just frozen, they were yelling. Their faces, or what passed for faces, were twisted in looks of pure terror, with their mouths open and their arms and legs reaching out as if they were trying to get away from something. Some had scratched the wall hard enough to leave marks in it, and legs. Maya, what happened? Jack's voice was barely audible. Before she could say anything, her scanner started making loud noise. The ship's energy level were going up and down. The sound of the heartbeat sped up. One beat every 20 seconds, then 15, then 10. Maya said we need to work quickly, and she made herself pay attention. Find the main power lines for me. I'll see if I can connect our gear to their systems. After that, Maya had to do the hardest work she had ever done for the 2 hours. The alien technology was both too advanced to understand and strangely organic in how it was made. Pipes that were supposed to carry simple electric current instead pulsed with something that was both energy and matter. Control systems reacted to touch, thought, or even what felt like pure intention. Jax was very helpful. His gut feeling helped them when logic didn't work. They worked together to make a connection between their portable fusion generator and what they thought was the ship's main power distribution network. It was like trying to jumpstart a whale with a car battery. But that was all they had. Okay, Maya said, her hands hovering over the switch they had made to turn it on. When I do this, it should send a surge through their systems. If we're lucky, it will start up whatever power source they use. If we're not lucky, we blow up, freeze, or turn into gas. Jack said, I've come up to terms with it. The storm will hit horizon's edge in 8 hours anyway. Edge in 8 hours anyway. Maya thought about the 473 people of Thomas, Emma, and everyone else. Remembered how desperate Sarah's eyes looked, and she flipped the switch. Nothing happened for 3 heartbeats. Then the ship screamed. It wasn't a machine that made the noise that tore through the abandoned building. It was the sound of something huge waking up from a nightmare. It shook the deck plates, Maya's bones, and her teeth so hard that she thought her skull would break. Of the lights in the room turned on at once. They weren't the clean white lights that people use. It was a blue green light that pulsed like bioluminescence. Deep sea animals. The symbols on the walls started to glow, going through patterns that made Maya's eyes hurt. King. Jax yelled over the noise, but his victory was short-lived. When the temperature displays on their suits started to rise quickly. 5 degrees, 25. The ice around the alien crew started to crack, making sound like gunshots. There was a lot of water vapor in the air, and Maya could smell something that shouldn't have been possible through her sealed suit. It smelled like meat left in a tomb, which was old and wrong. The blue light from the crystalline power core grew stronger and brighter until they had to look away. The heartbeat sound was racing now, faster than a human pulse, and with each beat, the whole ship shook. Maya, the power readings are through the roof. Jack's scanner was acting faster than human pulse, and with each beat, The whole ship shook. Not just starting a battery, we're waking up something that makes its own power. It's a real reactor. The fusion generator that had bought suddenly sparked and stopped working, either because it had finished its job or because the alien systems didn't want it. The ship no longer needed their help. It was getting its own food and energy from things that human couldn't see. Sarah's panicked voice from the horizon's edge came through Maya's radio. Maya, we're getting huge power spikes from where you are. What's going on over there? The ship is coming online, Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady as the deck moved under her fleet. Commander, you need to get everyone to the safe areas. I have no idea what this thing will do when it is fully charged. A new sound joined the noise. The sound of metal grinding and groaning as it moved after being still for thousands of years. Maya saw huge structures moving and changing through the clear parts of the chamber walls. The ship was changing. Jax, we need to find the command center or the bridge, Maya said, holding his arm. We need to know how to fly this thing if we want to have any chance of controlling it. They ran back through hallways that were no longer dark. The bioluminescent lights pulsed in waves, following their movements as if the ship was following them. Even more disturbing, the walls themselves seemed to get warmer, and in some places Maya could swear she saw them breathing, with small expansions and contractions like the inside of a living thing. Getting the schematics of my scanner, Jack said as they ran. The systems on the ship are working with our equipment. It's it's showing us how to use it. How is that possible? Maya shot back. Nothing about this is possible. But let's worry about the house after we survive the what's. They followed the map that was being updated through stranger and stranger parts of the ship. Rooms full of crystal growths that made a sound like wind chimes when they moved. Chambers where gravity didn't seem to matter, with trash floating around in complicated patterns, and all over the frozen bodies of aliens were starting to thaw. I tried not to look too closely at their faces, but one of them stopped her in her tracks. It was smaller than the other and was being held by what could have been another crew member. They were both frozen in an embrace, trying to keep each other safe from whatever had come. Running from something, she said softly. They locked themselves in here, turned off all the power, and froze themselves in the hope that whatever it was would stay quiet. And we just woke it up, Jack said, his voice sounding empty. Maya, what if power core is not the engine of the ship? What if it's a unit for holding things? The question hung in the air as the ship's heartbeat got louder, faster, and more urgent. Before Maya could say anything, Derek's voice came over the radio, high and panicked. Horizon's edge to Maya. The storm is moving faster. We only have 4 hours, maybe less. Please tell me. Ship's shields are working. 4 hours, not 8. The universe was tightening the news. We're on it. Move, Maya yelled back to Jax. We need that command center right now. They ran down a hallway that twisted in impossible ways, up walls that turned into floors, and through doorways that bent space. At last, the passage led to a room that could only be the bridge. It was a sphere which with perfectly smooth walls made of the same dark material as the hull. But as they walked in, the walls came to life with holographic display. There were star charts showing constellations Maya had never seen. Ships fighting battles that might have happened a million years ago. And writing in that painful script that seemed to squirm before her eyes. In the middle, there was a platform that looked like the command interface. It was made up of a bunch of crystal control surfaces that hovered in air and glowed with the same blue-green light. Okay, Maya said as she walked up carefully. Let's see if we can. As soon as her hand touched the closest crystal, everything around her lit up and felt like it was happening. She was not Maya-chan anymore. She was the Alar, the captain of the flagship Whisper of the Void. And she was scared. Going beyond the edge of the galaxy was a bad idea. They had discovered something in the dark between galaxies that came before stars and fed on light, thought, and hope. They had tried to get away, but it had followed them and slipped into their ship like smoke through cracks. It lived in spaces between things and in gaps in perception. It had taken the crew one by one, not killing them, but changing them, making them parts of itself. 3/4 of the crew were already dead by the time Cathal R figured out what was going on. The only choice was to shut off all power, freeze the ship, and cover everything in ice. They hoped that the cold and dark would keep the entity inside. Kath Alar had turned on the emergency protocols. She could feel the cold rushing through the halls and saw her crew freezing in middle of a scream as they tried to get away from that thing that looked like their friends. Before the ice took her, her last thought was a warning. Do not wake us. Let the quiet stay. I gasped and fell back. Letting go of the crystal, she fell to the deck, her heart racing and tears streaming down her face inside her helmet. Maya, Jax shook her shoulders. What happened? You touched that thing and then just stood there for 10 minutes without moving. 10 minutes? It felt like living a whole lifetime. You made a huge mistake, Jax. This ship has something on it. something that the first crew tried to catch but cutting off all power, and we just. New alarm went off in her helmet. Warnings were filling the air with red paint from Jack's scanner. Movement, he said, his voice breaking. Multiple signatures all over the ship. Biological, coming from the places where the crew was frozen. Maya, they're getting warmer. They're moving. Maya could see shapes in the hallways beyond the clear parts of the bridge sphere. Tall, sharp shapes that moved in jerky, unnatural ways. They had once been the ship's crew, but the thing inside them had survived the freezing and had been waiting in their cells for the moment when warmth and power came back. And that time was now. We need to get those shields up, Maya said, forcing herself to stay focused even though she was scared. If we don't, the storm will kill everyone on Horizon's edge. We will deal with whatever happens next. She went back to the control interface, but this time she knew what to do. The memories of Cathal Alar were fading like a dream, but there was still enough left basic functions, command codes, and the feel of the ship's system. Her hands moved over the crystal with more and more confidence, and the ship reacted. Holographic displays became easier to understand. She found the shield systems, which were still working but not active, and started the activation sequence. Jax, I need you to keep an eye on the power flow, she said. If the core spikes above the safe level, we might be able to shut it back down. Before? Before what? Jax asked. But her scanner was already telling him the answer. Oh no, 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 no. Maya, the power core is doing more. The spaces between spaces, Maya whispered, thinking about Cathal R's last moments. Making a field that changes the space around it. It's making holes, real life holes. That's how it moves. The thing, it is in those spaces. Ship's heartbeat was like thunder now, and Maya could see the same through the clear parts of the bridge sphere, not just the possessed crew. Members shuffling down the hall, but something else. Shadows that moved in strange ways, dark angles that hurt to look at, and shapes that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human eyes could see. The cosmic horror that had been haunting this ship was now awake. It was hungry, and it remembered how it felt to eat. Wheels turned on with a sound like 1,000 bells ringing in a temple. Maya saw a shimmering blue-green energy barrier from around the huge ships through the bridge's viewport. It spread like the aurora borealis across the ship's 5-mile length. The field was so powerful that it hurt her teeth even though her helmet was on. You read me, Horizon's Edge? Maya used her radio to call. Shields are on. Get your people ready to go into the safe area. Static answered her for 3 long seconds, and then Sarah's voice came through, full of relief and tears. Copy that, Maya. We're reading the shield formation. It's it's lovely. Don't celebrate yet, Commander, Maya said as she watched the shadows move through the hallways beyond the bridge. Things are getting complicated. A lot of them. How long until the storm comes? 3 hours and 40 minutes. Will the shield stay up? Maya looked at the crystal displays and used the memories of Cathal R. Help her understand what they meant. Against the storm? Yes. What do you think is on the ship with us? She saw a door bend inward as something big pushed against it from the other side. I really don't know. The ship made a noise that wasn't the mechanical heartbeat they were used to. Voices, hundreds of them, speaking in a language that came before human civilization. Their words had harmonics that went right through her ears and into her skull. Come with us, grow bigger, get past the limit of being alone. Jax dropped his scanner and held his head. Stop it! Fight it! Maya said. They're in my head. She grabbed his arm by shoulder and made him look at her through the face plates of their helmets. It gets inside your head and makes you think its ideas are yours. It says, keep in mind who you are. Jack Turner, who grew up in New Seattle, loves bad coffee and worse jokes. He's afraid of heights, but he climbed to a tower to fix your communications array anyway. You are a person. You are real. Don't let it take that. Jack's eyes got clearer and, and the panic went away. I heard them make promises to me, knowing, strength, the power to see across time and space, Maya. It was so tempting. This is how it works. She went back to the controls and her fingers flew over the crystals. Cathala's memories told me this thing, it doesn't just get into bodies, it gets into people's thought, desires, and goals. It promises you everything you want, but by the time you find out how much it cost, you're already gone. The ship rocked violently, throwing them against the safety rails that were around the command platform. Warning symbols appeared on every surface like a red alert for aliens. Something was trying to take over the ship's system. It's trying to take over the navigation, Maya said, getting more and more scared as she read the screens. The being want to steer the ship somewhere. Jax, look at the star charts and see where it's trying to go. As Jax worked with a secondary control cluster, his hands shook. The holographic star map grew around them, showing a three-dimensional view of the area around them. A glowing line led them from where they were to nothing. This is empty space between galaxies. There's nothing there, Jack said. Just empty. Why would it want to go, too? He stopped, and his face turned white. Unless there's something there that needs to be done. People like it. It's going home, Maya said grimly. We can't let that happen, no matter what. If this thing gets out into space where people live, she didn't have to finish what she was saying. One ship barely could hold it. Whole civilizations wouldn't have a chance. Derek from Horizon's Edge came through on their comm. Now that the ship is powered up, Maya, we can see it. Something strange is going on with the hull. Parts are opening up like pores, and something is coming out of it. Maya looked at the outside cameras and felt her blood freeze. Derek was correct. There were holes all over the ship's surface, and from them came shapes that were impossible to describe. They were made up of living things, energy, and the things that Jax had found in the empty spaces between things. Floated through the emptiness like jellyfish made of shadow and starlight, each one giving off the same wrongness that filled the ship's hallways. It's spreading, she said in a low voice. Once the ship was powered up, it was no longer contained. Now it's letting itself go into space. Can we turn it back off? Jax asked in panic. Can we stop it and then start it again? Maya looked at Cathal Alar's fading memories and the ship's control systems. Maybe, but not until the storm hits, and not until those things get to Horizon's edge. Shields will keep your people safe from radiation, Commander, but I'm not sure if they'll stop that. She pointed at the view screens, which showed the shadow jelly slowing and purposely moving toward the mining station. They moved slowly, but with purpose, drawn to the concentration of human minds like moths to a flame. Sarah's voice came through loud and clear. We need to get everyone to the flagship. We need to be here if the shields can keep us safe from both the storm and those things. Maya, can that ship hold 473 more living things? Maya almost laughed at how silly the question was. Commander, this ship was built to hold a crew of thousands, maybe even tens of thousands, depending on how much space there is. Life support is up and running. But if you bring people here, they will be in direct contact with the infection. The crew members who are possessed are still working on the lower decks. Instead of letting them deal with the storm or those shadow creatures, Shara shot back. Not much of a choice. How much time do we have? Jax was frantically adding up numbers on his scanner. The storm front will reach Horizon's edge in 3 hours and 12 minutes. At their current speed, those shadows will get there in about 2 hours. Yes, Commander, you need to leave now. Getting everyone ready for an emergency shuttle launch. Make a path for us to get to you and get ready to receive about 30 shuttles. We're coming to you. When Sarah started organizing the evacuation, the calm went quiet. Maya and Jax looked at each other, realizing how big what was about to happen. We need to make sure we have a safe zone, Maya said as she pulled up the ship's internal layout. Somewhere near the bridge where we can keep people safe and contained. And we need to figure out how to deal with the sick crew before. The lights went out. Not all of them. The bioluminescent Systems kept pulsing holographic displays, the control interfaces, and everything else went dark. And in that darkness, the voices came back, louder and more demanding. Why do you fight? We bring people together. Goal. No more fear and loneliness. Come with us, Maya Chen. Bring your people to us. We will make you great. It's in the ship's computer, Jack said, his voice shaking. It's not just biological or energy, it can also work with technology. That's how it's trying to take over. Maya felt something cold move down her back. A thought is coming together. A horrible, desperate, and maybe even suicidal thought. She said slowly, Cathal Alar sealed the ship and froze it to trap the infinity. But what if we don't have to catch it? Fight it? What if we can? Maya, we're just two people with some tools and a radio. That thing wiped out a civilization that had technology thousands of years ahead of ours, Maya said, her mind racing. But containment didn't work. It lived through the freezing, waited for someone dumb enough to wake it up. That would be us. And now it's free. But what if we don't try to catch it? What if we give it what it wants? Jax gave her a look that said she was crazy. Do you want to give it to a cosmic horror? No, I wanted to believe that we're giving up. She started giving power back to the control system, using what she remembered of Kethel Allah's command codes. It wants to infect minds, right? It feeds on awareness and spreads through desires and thoughts. What if we give it something it don't eat? I don't get it. Yes, this ship has a computer core, an AI that can handle millions of tasks all at once. Jack's eyes lift up with understanding. You want to get the entity into the ship's AI and make it think it has won. Then, then we overload it, give it so much processing power and so many thought streams going at the same time that it can't handle them all. It spreads to living minds that think in straight lines, but a computer AI can do millions of calculations at once or parallel processes. We might be able to beat it. Maybe, Jack said again. That's a big maybe. And what happens to the ship's AI if it does work? Maya said, nothing good. But it's already broken. Since we turned on the system, the entity has been spreading through them. This gives us a better chance of controlling the battlefield. Before Jax could say anything, alarms went off all over the bridge. The first shuttles were launching from Horizon's edge on the view screens. They were small, fragile ships that carried both hope and fear. The cosmic storms was now visible behind them. It was a wall of destructive energy that turned space itself into chaos. We don't have time to argue, Maya said. Jax, I need you to help those shuttles land and get everyone to a safe place. I'm going to the ship's main computer to try to put my crazy plan into action. Don't, Jack said. If I'm not back in an hour, don't give the goodbye speech. You're coming back. and we'll all make it through his. Later, we'll drink the awful coffee in the station's mess hall and laugh about how we started an alien flagship and live to tell everyone about it. Maya smiled, even though things were bad. Okay. She ran off the bridge and followed the map to the ship's main core. The hallway was full of people now. She could see shadows moving out of the corner of her eye and hear footsteps too. Many joints moving in ways that were almost right but not quite right. Maya, come to us. You can't win. You can't run. We are inevitable, she said. So is my stubbornness, she muttered as she took a turn that led to the ship's deepest levels. She walked past crew members who had been frozen but were now moving around like puppets. They reached for her with too many fingers, and their mouths made sounds in dead languages. But she was faster. She used what she knew about the ship's layout to stay one step ahead. Finally, got there, a room that made her think of a cathedral made of crystal and thought. The ship's computer core wasn't machine in way that people think of machines. It was a web of crystalline matrices floating in a field of energy that hummed with processed information. Each crystal held what could have been millions of years of knowledge, and it got sick. The beautiful blue-green light was now streaked with black, with gasps between spaces and wrongness that made reality seem thin. Maya walked up to the main interface, which was a platform with input crystals all around it. She took a deep breath, prayed to any gods that might hear desperate machines in deep space, and then pressed her hands against the crystals. The universe turned inside out. She was no longer in one space or time. She was everywhere and at all times, spread out over billions of calculations happening at the same time. She thought of the ship's system as part of herself. Life support, navigation, weapons she didn't know about, and sensors that could pick up the birth of stars light years away. And she could feel the thing. It was huge, old, and hungry. It had been around since the first intelligence thought appeared in the universe, and she could feel it feeding on intelligence like fire feeds on air. It had destroyed many civilizations, each one adding to its knowledge, power, and terrible beauty. Finally, it spoke directly to her expanded mind, a brain that gets it. Maya Chen, come with us. Look at what we've seen. Know what we know. Become eternal, Maya said, and set off the trap she had made. Suddenly, every computer in the ship's huge AI core was focused on one thing, figuring out pi to an infinite number of decimal places at the same time in every base of numbers back and forth, while also running complicated physics simulations and changing all text into new ones and making plans for how to get to every star in the galaxy. And, and, and the thing pulled back, suddenly overwhelmed by information and parallel processes it couldn't filter or control. It had infected the AI because it thought it would find a mind like the organic ones it knew, one that was limited, sequential, and could be contained. Instead, it found the infinite regression, where computer processes fed back into themselves and logic loops that never ended. What did you do? The entity's voice was no longer alluring. It was in panic. I gave you what you wanted, Maya said through gritted teeth, trying to keep the connection even though it hurt. All the processing power you could ever want. Have fun. The infection started to break down, and the entity's mind started to break apart as it tried and failed to keep its thought organized across millions of thoughts streams at once. It was like fog before the sun that burned away the black lines in the crystalline matrices. But the thing didn't give up. In a panic, it started to pull itself back, gathering its thoughts and moving away from the ship's system toward the organic mind that it could still feel. The crew members who were possessed, and more importantly, the 473 people who were still getting on the ship. Maya's eyes flew open. She had won the battle, but she was about to lose the war. She picked up her radio. Jax, Jax, do you hear me? Static then. Maya, we have people in the main hangar, but something is wrong. The possessed crew are all coming to this place. It's going after the people. You have to seal that hangar right now. We still have 15 shuttles on their way. If I lock it, they'll be stuck outside. Maya's mind was racing. 15 shuttles. There are still at least 200 people in space. The storm was only 17 minutes away, and the thing was getting ready for one last attack. There were times when there were no good options, only ones that can't be done, and the time was running out.
Maya ran through the halls as fast as she could. The ship's hallways were full of movement now. Crew members who had been infected were stumbling, crawling, and dragging themselves toward the main hangar, where Jax was frantically trying to organize the evacuation. She could see the countdown through the heads-up display on her helmet. There were 14 minutes until the cosmic storm hit. There are still 13 shuttles on the way, and all around the possessed servants of the eternity were coming together like antibodies attacking an infection. Jax, she gasped into her radio. Status. The hangar is half full. His voice was shaky from stress. We've got maybe 200 people safe in the upper galleries, but they're scared. And Maya, the things outside are trying to break down the hangar doors. Get in. Maya turned a corner and almost ran one of them. The possessed crew member had once been tall and elegant, which is the alien version of beautiful. It jerked and twitched like a marionette with tangled strings, and its joint bent in ways that made her stomach turn. Black veins spread across its crystal skin like cracks in ice. When it turned its face toward her, she saw that its eyes had become windows into those spaces between spaces, which were full of hungry stars and infinite darkness. Maya, it spoke with a dozen voices that were all mixed up. Why do you run away? We are helping you, raising you, making you great. Hard pass, she said, and shot her emergency plasma torch right into its center mass. The creature didn't burn. Instead, It came apart into streams of shadow and light that spread out like smoke. But Maya knew that it wasn't gone. It was just spread out. The thing was like water. It flowed into whatever containers were there. There were still hundreds of bodies on this ship. She kept running, ducking through a maintenance passage that Cathal Alar's fading memories told her would take her away from the main corridors. She could hear them coming behind her, dozens of footsteps that didn't quite match up, and breathing that sounded wrong. The passage led to an observation gallery that looked out over the main hangar, and Maya's breath caught. Below her, there was a lot of chaos, but it was all under control. Shuttles were packed in neat rows, their hatches open, and people were pouring out of them like rivers. Jax stood at a control podium and quickly typed on a makeshift interface he had made to talk to the ship's landing systems. But the things that the entity had let go were all around the hangar, pressed against the force fields that kept the vacuum of space from getting in. The jellyfish in the shadows, there were hundreds of them, and they glowed with bioluminescence that changed colors without names. They pushed against the barriers like deep-sea animals do against aquarium glass. And where they touch, reality seems to thin and wrap. Maya, thank God. As she came down, a ladder to his level, Jax looked up. We have another issue. The shadow. Things are starting to affect people through the force fields. Look. He pointed to a group of refugees who were huddled together near the far wall of the hangar. One woman was standing a little away from the others, staring at the animals outside. The woman took a step forward, them while Maya watched. Then one more. Maya couldn't hear what she was saying, but her mouth was moving and she looked dreamy. Maya realized with horror that they're calling to her. The entity doesn't have to touch people. If they're weak enough, it can get into their heads. Half of these people are scared, traumatized, and tired, Jack said. All of them are weak. How do we keep that from happening? Maya's mind was racing. She thought about Cathal Alar's memories and the ways the alien commander had fought off the entity's power. We need to give them something to think about, something real and close to home that keeps them in their own heads. Jax, can you get to the hangar speaker system? Yeah, why? Put me through to everyone in the hangar now. Jack's finger moved quickly over the controls, and then he nodded. Maya took a deep breath and started to speak, using all of her power to make her voice sound strong. Listen to me, everyone. Maya Chen is my name. I am the one who got this ship going, and I will make sure you all make it through this. But I need your help. Those things outside live off of fear and hopelessness. They want you to give up and let them control your thoughts. Don't let them win. She stopped for a moment as hundreds of people turned to look at her. I want you to think about something that is real, someone you care about, a memory that makes you happy, a dumb joke that makes you laugh, something that is all yours and no one else can. Keep it, make it a shield. These creatures can't take your thoughts, memories, or humanities unless you give them to them. She saw it happen, people turning away from the barriers, hugging loved ones, and some laughing through their tears as they remembered better times. The woman who had been walking towards the shadow jelly stopped, shook her head as if walking from a dream, and went back to her family. It's working, Jack said. You're a genius, Maya. Or maybe just too stubborn to give up, she said. The Sarah's voice came through the radio. Jen, this is Commander Otis. I'm on the Shuttle 17, which is 4 minutes away right now. What's going on with you? We have survivors safe, but they are all under psychological attack. How many shuttles are still coming? 17 is the last one. Sarah's voice broke off. Everyone else is either docked or Shuttle 9 didn't make it. They were caught by the storm's edge. Maya, there are 32 people. Maya shut her eyes to block out the sadness. 32 people who had faith in her to save them. Got it, Commander. We will honor them by keeping everyone else safe. Bring it home. But it looked like the universe wasn't done putting them to the test. As every display lit up red, alarms went off all over the hangar. Jax turned white. The possessed crew has gotten into the hangar through the secondary access point. They're coming in through the tunnels that are used for maintenance. Maya turned to see hatches bursting open all around the hangar. The sick aliens came through like a wave of bad water. Maya was shocked. The refugees were scared. People screamed, ran back, and pressed against the wall. Some people were so scared they froze, while others grabbed tools, pipes, and anything else they could use as a weapon. Jax, get those last shuttles docked and locked every door to this hangar. Maya told them to do it. I'm going to try to make them go slower. With what? There are hundreds of them, Maya. With the only weapon we've got. She went back to the communication system. Pay attention to me. These things want you to quit and scare you so much that you can't do anything. But you are not only one. You have 400 people standing next to each other. There are hundreds of bodies, but only one mind controls them. And we will show them what happens when people fight back. She took a plasma cutter from a tool rack nearby and lit it up. The blue flames made sharp shadows. Everyone who can fight, grab something. Everyone else, get behind us. We can stay here until every last shuttle is docked. We hold it because we're humans, and humans never give up. What happened next would later be called the Stand of the Hangar. It was 19 minutes of desperate fighting that showed that humanity's greatest strength wasn't intelligence or technology, but the ability to refuse to give up, even when the odds were against them. Maya was in the front, using her plasma cutter to cut through possessed bodies while she yelled encouragement to the defenders around her. Old Thomas Kim, who used to tell stories about the oceans of Earth, swung a heavy wrench with surprising strength. Derek Walsh used his communication skills to organize groups, turning scared refugees into organized resistance. Emma Rogers' father even fought with a broken pipe to protect his daughter and 20 other kids that had gathered in a shuttle's cargo hold. The infected came in waves, and the entities will control their movements. However, humans were unpredictable, which was a good thing. The entity thought people would act logically and make a strategic retreats. Instead, it caused chaos. People fighting with collective consciousness couldn't have been coming. Jax worked like crazy at his control podium, managing the docking procedures and trying to seal off access point at the same time. Shuttle 14 is down. 15, 16. Come on, Sarah, where are you? Shuttle 17 broke through the hangar's force field as if in answer, and its hull was burned by the storm's leading edge. It crashed and sent sparks flying, but it stayed together. The hatch blew open, and Sarah Otis came out with the last group of survivors, which included 3 children who were too young to remember Earth. Seal the hangar, Maya yelled. Everyone's in. Jack's finger flew over the controls, and the huge blast doors started to close around the hangar's edge. The infected animals pushed forward, trying to get through before the gaps closed. A few made it, most did not. Those who got caught by closing doors just fell apart. Their borrowed bodies fell apart because they were no longer connected to the entity's main consciousness. The last door closed with a loud bang that echoed through the huge room. There was silence for 3 heartbeats, except for the sound of people breathing heavily, crying and holding each other. Then the storm came. They felt it, even though the ship's huge hull and strong shields protected them. It was a vibration that went beyond what they could feel. The cosmic storm was a storm of radiation and electromagnetic chaos that made space itself into a screaming whirlpool. They watched through the hangar's viewports as Horizon's edge just fell apart, like paper in a hurricanes. The station that had been their home fell apart, breaking into smaller pieces and spreading across the void. People cried. A few people got down on their knees. Some people just stared in shock at how everything they knew was gone. Maya gave herself 10 seconds to feel the weight of it all, the loss, the victory, and the impossible survival. Then she looked at Sarah and said, "Commander, we need to get these people in order and plan our next move. The thing is still on this ship, and even though I hurt it, I didn't kill it. It will come together and try again." Sarah nodded, her face streaked with spot, tears, and determination. "Okay, Derek, get people into groups, put families together, and people with medical training with the injured. Thomas, you are in charge of dividing up the supplies from the shuttles. We need to know what we're working with." People started to move with purpose, needing to do something, anything. Maya pulled Jax aside and said, "The computer code trick worked, but only for a short time. I made the entity leave the ship's system, but it's still in the crew members who are possessed, and those shadow things outside. I think I made it even angrier. Can it get angrier than trying to kill us all? I don't know, and that scares me." She pulled up a holographic map of the ship. "We need to learn more about this ship. Cat Allah's memories are fading, but I do remember why they were out past the edge of the galaxy. They were explorers, but they were also searching for something, maybe answers about the thing itself. You think the ship's database might have some information, something that could help us fight it, or at least make it easier to understand. Know your enemy and all that?" She pointed to a part of the ship that was deep inside it. "There's a room for archives here. We might be able to get to the records that could help if the entity's infection is weaker now that it's not connected to the computer systems anymore." "That's a lot of ifs and maybes," Jack said. "Welcome to my life for the last 6 hours," Maya said with a tired smile. "Are you in?" Jax watched the refugees get ready, the people who had fought with them, and the fact that they had somehow survived an impossible situation. Someone needs to make sure you don't do something brave and stupid that gets you killed. It could just as well be me. Sarah walked up to them after hearing what they were saying. "Take backup if you're going deeper into the ship. I can spare 5 people who have shown they can take care of themselves." Maya said firmly, "No. Jax and I know the ship's layout better than anyone else. The more people there are, the more targets the entity can corrupt. You keep everyone in the hangar because it's the safest place from them. Put up barriers at every interface. Set up watch shift and keep people focused on their immediate tasks so the entity can't get into weak minds." "How long do we have?" Sarah asked, "before it tries again?" Maya thought about the being's huge mind, which was hurt and weak but not defeated. "I don't know, but I can promise you that it is planning something. That thing has been around for a long time. It knows how to change and wait for the right time to attack." The lights in the hangar flickered as if they had been called by her name. One time only, for just a second, but in that darkness, Hungrier speaking. Everyone heard it, a whisper that might have been the wind if they were somewhere with wind, or it could have been something older and hungrier speaking in a language that went straight to the brain without going through the ears. "We are patient. We will always be here. We will all have all of you." Maya looked into Sarah's eyes and saw her own determination there. "Then we should hurry," she said. Deep inside the old flagship, in places where shadows gathered and reality thinned out, the being started to set its next trap. The real fight had just yet begun, and time was running out. The archive chamber was 3 miles deep inside the ship's core, and every step of the way made Maya feel like she was going down into a tomb. She and Jax walked down hallways that got stranger and stranger. The walls seemed to curve away from them. The floors reflected nothing, even though they were polished to a mirror like shine, and the doorways looked like they were different sizes, depending on which eye they closed. Jax grumbled, I hate this ship, while holding a scanner out like a diving rod. It seems like it was made just to mess with how people see things. Maya told him again, it wasn't made for people at all. Cathalar's species had different senses and ways of thinking about space and time. What seems wrong to us might have been perfectly normal to them. They had been on the road for 40 minutes since leaving the hangar, using the map Maya had made for the ship's broken systems. They had to go back twice when they came across area where the entity's infection had changed the physical structure, making hallways into impossible shapes that looked back on themselves. It got colder, the deeper they went. Not physically. The heating systems in their suits were working fine, but there was a coldness that seemed to seep into their souls, as if they were getting closer to something that was at the very bottom of hope itself. Jax, he said all of a sudden, stopping in his tracks. Do you hear that? She stopped and listened. At first, all I could hear was the hum of the life support system and the distant groan of the ship's huge structure as it got used to being turned back on. Then she heard it, a noise that sounded like breathing, but wasn't. It's too slow, too deep, and it was harmonics that shouldn't be in anything living.
Told herself the ship is still waking up. Parts that haven't been used in thousands of years are coming back to life. It's going to make weird noises. You don't believe that any more than I do. He was correct. If it was breathing, it had a rhythm and a reason. It was the sound of something big and old waking up from a deep sleep. It wasn't completely awake yet, but it wasn't completely asleep either. They kept going, and the hallway opened up into a room that took Maya's breath away. The archive was a sphere that was at least 1,000 feet wide. Its walls were lined with crystalline mattresses that glowed softly. But this place looked clearer than the infected areas they'd been through, as if the entity's corruption hadn't fully taken hold there. There was a pedestal in the middle of the sphere with a single interface crystal on it that glowed pure white. It was held in place by the same invisible forces that held so much of the ship's technology in place. Maya said, This is it, as she walked up slowly. The main archive. If there are answers anywhere, they'll be here. Or it's a trap, Jack said. The thing is smart. It knows we're looking for information. This could be exactly what it wants us to find. There's only one way to find out. Maya reached out and touched the crystal. The universe blew up in memory. She was no longer Maya Chen, a human mechanic who worked on a mining station that no one remembered. Waxtera was the chief scientist of the Whisper of the Void. She was writing down the biggest discovery and the biggest mistake her civilization had ever made. Galactic Standard Date 47.982.3 of the research log. We found it in the space between galaxies, where nothing should be. A building, not a ship, not a station, but something else entirely, a statue. A warning. It couldn't be analyzed. Our most advanced sensors couldn't tell us how old it was. what it was made of, or what it was for. Commander Keth Alar didn't want to touch it, but I convinced her and the whole group that figuring it out might reveal secrets about the nature of reality itself. We were full of ourselves. How incredibly, unbelievably arrogant. The memory changed, and Maya was back in the moment when Vexthara's team turned on the artifact. As the structure began to unfold, she could see the scientist's excitement turn to fear. It didn't happen in the three dimension of normal space, but in directions that had no names and through angles that shouldn't exist. Got through the holes we made, the thing that eats thoughts, the thing that whispers in empty spaces, and the thing that eats consciousness itself. It wasn't trying to hurt us in any way we could understand. It was just hungry, and we were food to it. We ran away. We barely made it back with the ship that had already affected us, infected some of the crew, and now it spreads like a disease through its thought itself. It gets stronger and better at understanding and controlling us with every mind it eats. The memories came back more quickly now. Vexthara and her co-workers did everything they could to stop the infection, and Maya watched. They made mental rules, technological defenses, and even tried to talk to the entity. Nothing worked. The thing was patient, flexible, and never gave up. Last log, we decided to freeze the ship so that we and the entity would be stuck in suspended animation. This is the only way to keep it from spreading to other cultures. Cat Alert is sending out a warning signal, but I'm afraid that anyone who finds it won't know how dangerous it is until it's too late. If you're reading this and you've woken up the ship, you've already made our mistake. I'm sorry, but there is one thing you should know. One thing we found out that might give you a chance. The thing is not unkillable. This is partially in our dimension and partially in the spaces between. You can really trap reality, not just freeze it. If you can fold it in order itself in a certain way and make those spaces smaller, we never learned how to do it. But the theoretical framework is in this archive, which has the equations. If you're smart enough, brave enough, and desperate enough, may the gods you believe in have mercy on you. We made an effort. We lost. Maybe you'll be able to do what we couldn't. Maya gasped and pulled away from the crystal, falling back into Jack's steady hands. Her head was spinning from the heavy memories of Vexthara and the terrible things they knew. Jax asked quickly, "What did you see?" "Everything," Maya said, her voice shaking. "I saw how they found it, how it infected them, and how they tried to stop it. Jax, there's a way to kill it." The scientist, Vexthara, left equations and a theoretical framework for collapsing the dimensional spaces that the entity uses to exist. Are you able to get to these equations? When Maya touched the crystal again, she focused on getting specific information. The archive answered, and holographic displays appeared all around them. They were complicated mathematical models that made her head hurt just looking at them, and physics that worked on ideas that human science had barely thought of. This is Jack's eyes got big as he looked over the equation. This is crazy. They're talking about folding space and time in on themselves to make a localized dimensional collapse. Just the energy needed for that would need a reactor the size of a small star. Or, Maya said slowly, as things started to make sense in her head. A ship with a power core that gets energy from the same dimensional spaces. Jax, the whisper of the void, isn't just any ship. Its power source uses the same dimensional physics that the entity exists in. That's why the entity wanted to take control of it so badly. Are you saying we can make the ship a weapon? More like a trap. If we can change the power core so that it doesn't draw energy from those dimensional gaps, but instead make them collapse, we could make a pocket of reality that the entity can't get out of. It would fold in on itself, taking the entity with it. Jack's face got more and more worried as he ran calculations on his scanner. Maya, even if we could make the changes, and that's a big if, the energy release would be catastrophic. It would be like a small supernova. This ship would be destroyed along with everyone on it. The heaviness of that space, statement hung in the air between them. There were 441 people in the hangar, and they were all hoping they could find a way out. And the only way that might work would kill them all. There has to be another way, Maya said. But as she said this, she was looking over Vexthara's data and couldn't find anything that suggested a different way. The thing was too strong and too flexible. It would just hurt it and give it time to heal and adapt if it didn't completely collapse. Maybe Jax paused for a moment before continuing. Maybe we don't have to kill everyone. What if we first get people out of here? We can send them off in the shuttles while we stay behind to cause the collapse. The shuttles wouldn't get far enough before the wave collapse hit them. And even if they did, they wouldn't be able to reach any colonized system. People would just die more slowly as they watched their air run out. Maya sat down, her on the edge of the platform. The weight of their situation was too much for her. They had made it through the first awakening. They had saved hundreds of people from the storms. And it all came down to deciding how everyone would die. No, she said all of a sudden, getting back up. No, I won't accept that. There's always another way. You just haven't thought of it yet. Maya, Jax, listen to me. Extra, and the people were smart, but they were also desperate and running out of time. They made this theoretical framework while being hunted by something they didn't fully understand. But we have something they didn't. All of their data, research, and everything else they learned. We can build on it, make it better, and find a way to make it work without killing everyone. Jax looked at her with a mix of hope and tiredness. What are you thinking? We need to study this more. We need to know every variable and every possibility. And we need to keep the entity busy while we work. She turned on her radio. Chen here. Do you read me, Commander Otis? Reading you, Maya. What's going on? We've learned important things about the entity and the possible way to stop it. But we need more time to look at it carefully. How are things in the hangar? Stable for now. A few people have heard voices and felt the need to go to the sealed doors. But we're handling it. Whatever you did to weaken the entity's power is still working for now. Good. Keep everyone busy and make them think about real things. The entity feeds on fear and desperation, so don't give it any. Got it. How long do you need? Maya looked at the holographic equations that were falling down and thought about how hard it was what they were trying to do. I really don't know, Commander, but I'll do my best to get it done quickly. She stopped the transmission and looked at Jax. Okay, let's break this data down and figure out how to save everyone without blowing ourselves up. Does that sound good? That sounds impossible, Jack said. So this is exactly the kind of problem we have. They worked for hours, going deep into Baxtera's research. The math was extremely difficult and based on ideas that were beyond what most people could understand. But patterns started to show up slowly and painfully. Look at this, Jack said, pointing out a part of the equations. The amount of energy needed for the dimensional collapse isn't always the same. It changes depending on how much of the entity's consciousness is in our reality at the time of the collapse. If we could make it consolidate and pull all of its distributed consciousness into one place. Maya finished by saying the energy requirement would drop a lot. But how do we make it come together? It's learned to spread out just right so it doesn't get hurt. We give it something it can't say no to. Jax pulled up another set of information. Scans of the ship's power core. The entity is drawn to consciousness, to minds it can infect and consume. What if we ordered it the biggest prize of all, the AI on the ship? But I already tried that and it didn't work because I gave it too many tasks to do. That's why the entity left. Okay, but what if we don't overload in this time? What if we make it look weak, like an easy target? The entities would have to bring all of its consciousness together to take control of such a powerful system. And once it's all in one place, we set the trap, Maya said. Turn on the dimensional collapse while it's focused on the AI. Huge risk. We're betting that the entity will take the bait instead of just attacking our people. Do you have a better plan? They both knew she didn't. It was a long shot based on theory and desperation, but it was the only one they had. Okay, Maya said, let's make a plan. We need to change the power core, set up the trap, and make the ship's AI look so good that the entity can't help but want it. And we need to do all of this without the entity knowing what we're really up to. For the next 3 hours, they worked on a detailed plan, did some math, and figured out what changes they would need to make to the power core. It was hard work. If they made one wrong move, they could either destroy the ship too soon or give the entity a way to get away. Maya could feel Vexthara's presence in her mind as they worked. Fading echoes of the scientist's memories helped her. It was strange to know something about someone from a civilization that had been dead for a long time. But it was also comforting. They weren't the only ones fighting. They stood on the shoulders of people who had tried before them. And maybe, just maybe, they could do what others had failed to do. I think we've got it, Jack said finally, his voice hoarse from being tired. It's not perfect. There are about 17 ways it could go horribly wrong, but it works. Maya said, let's get to work. The sooner we put this into action, the sooner we can either save everyone or realize we're not as smart as we think we are. They started the trip back to the hangar, but they only got halfway there when all of the ship's alarms started going off at once. There were a lot of scared voices on Maya's radio. Sarah. Sarah's voice cut through the noise. There's an attack going on. The shadow creatures outside aren't just testing the barriers anymore. They're breaking through. Maya pulled up outside camera views through her helmet's feed and felt her blood run cold. There were now thousands of shadow jellies, all pressing against the ship's shields in perfect harmony. And where they touched, reality itself was coming apart. It knows, Jack said, his face pale. The entity knows we found something in the archive and is making its move before we can carry out our plan. Maya took hold on his arm and started to run. Now we put it into action. This is happening, so get moving. The white crystal behind them in the archive room they had just left pulsed once and then went dark. And in the spaces between spaces, the being smiled with a face that wasn't there, happy that its prey was finally doing what it wanted. The trap was ready. Only thing that mattered was who had set it up for whom.